going on, guys? Today I'm going to speak about 14 tips that you can use with your clients to increase your communication and make it more effective. Tip number 1. Now this is the most important one in my opinion. Know your product, know your service inside out, and this will give you the confidence and assertiveness to actually deliver the communication you need to your customer. Tip number 2, don't be afraid to say no. This gives your client complete clarity on when something is not supposed to be done. A lot of the times I see trainers faffing about saying it's okay, things like this, because they're in fear of making their client upset. This doesn't help. Tip number 3, use these, listen to their needs and expectations of what's required from you and make that clear on the other side of the fence. You need to let them know what your expectations are, and they need to be clear on what your expectations from them are. With this clarity, your communication gets a lot easier. Tip number 4, speak their language. Now I don't mean speak their actual language like Greek, German, English, French, Scottish. What I mean is understand the way these people speak, what makes them tick, and kind of resonate with that individual and speak in the language that they understand. Don't try and be a scientific book, speak to people in layman's terms. Tip number 5, be polite. At the end of the day, there's no cost for being polite. You need to have a mutual respect between each other, and being polite is basically what you expect from them to you, so you need to give that back to them. Tip number 6, you need to have a bit of empathy with their problem, but at the end of the day, that empathy can't be sympathetic all the time. You need to understand where they're coming from and find solutions, but empathy is a big part of your communication. Tip number 7, ask questions and be genuinely interested in the individual that's in front of you. Trust me, this will help a lot. Tip number 8, use the right channels. So a lot of your communication won't be just through your one-to-one session. You may have to speak to people through direct messages, through emails, through social media, through voice notes, through loads of different streams, but you have to find out which one your client uses the most and is most effective in actually getting a response from them, and use that vehicle. It could be as simple as a phone call. Tip number 9, add personal touches. Whenever you're speaking to someone, refer to them by their name. Whenever you're sending them an email, refer to them by their name. It's important that the things that you integrate within your communication are personal. Tip number 10, add follow-ups. So things like check-ins, things like looking into when you have delivered something to a client, understanding whether they have understood what is required of them. Follow up with people, get feedback. This is really important. Tip number 11, ask for feedback. The most easiest way for you to understand how to manipulate your communication, your training sessions and everything is to understand what the other individual wants from you. So don't be afraid to ask your clients for feedback. Tip number 12, stay patient. Frustration can set in if your client is not doing exactly what you want them to do, but that frustration will get across to those individuals in your communication, in your body language, etc. It is important that you stay patient. Remember, 65 to 93% of your communication comes through your body language. Don't let your frustration seep through. Tip number 13, be consistent. If you're scrambled and all over the place in the messaging that you're giving to the individual, you're going to confuse them. Consistency allows people to adapt. Consistency allows people to understand exactly the message that you're trying to get across to them so that they can improve and get better. Tip number 14, try and make things easy for them. And what I mean here is don't be easy in terms of like your training is really easy and it's not that challenging, but try and set them up to win. Remember, willpower is not the thing that wins, it's the environment that you set up that allows willpower to grow. And so your communication is involved in that. Try and make people understand things easier. Integrate these 14 tips into your practice and watch your coaching become way more effective.